friends! My name is Desiree, aka Mama Friendly, and I do all sorts of videos on my channel, from cooking videos to planner videos, vlogs, hauls, homeschool videos with a Disney twist, a little bit of everything. So if any of that sounds like fun to you, I hope that you'll subscribe and join me on my YouTube adventure. Late last year, I started a series on cycle syncing. I'm gonna have the playlist linked up here and also in the description box down below. Cycle syncing is the practice of changing your nutrition, your exercise habits, little bits about your lifestyle in general, depending on what phase of the menstrual cycle you happen to be in. The reason you might do this is to help you balance your hormones, if you have PCOS, if you're trying to conceive, or if you just generally want to feel better in your day-to-day life, because it's just a way of helping support your body and giving you the nutrition and the movement you need at any given point. I only just started it a few months ago, and so I'm obviously not an expert, I'm not a doctor. I'm just somebody that kind of dove into this head first, and I've been having a good time at it so far, so I'm trying to share the information that I've learned in hopes that maybe it'll give you a jumping off point. And so if you want to do your own research and get into it as well, you can. So in that series last year, I went through each of the stages of your menstrual cycle. I talked about what happens in your body during those phases, why you would want to eat certain foods and move a certain way and maybe focus on certain aspects of your life. And I did a sample grocery haul with each of those phases to kind of give you an idea of what is appropriate to eat if you are following cycle syncing. I also went into seed cycling, which is a separate but related sort of lifestyle change you might make as well. And I said in that series that I wanted to continue into 2023, but with a little bit of a twist. So instead of continuing to do grocery hauls exclusively, I might still do ones here and there. What I want to do is try to share recipes that you could use during different phases of your menstrual cycle. So the first recipe I want to share with you is these paleo carrot muffins that you can have for breakfasts or for snacks, specifically during the menstrual phase, but honestly, there's foods in here that have to do with the entire menstrual cycle, so I think it would be good anytime. It contains both almond flour and actual pecans. You could also use walnuts, and nuts and seeds are great for any phase in your cycle. Good source of protein, good source of good fat. You've also got carrot in these muffins, which makes them really sweet and delicious, but also it is an estrogen balancer, I suppose, because it helps bring your estrogen to just the right level, and then you are able to eliminate the rest more efficiently when you eat carrots. These were super easy to make. They're naturally gluten, dairy, and soy free, which is another consideration because that's how I eat all the time anyway. And if you're somebody that does a lot of gluten-free baking, you probably have all these things in your kitchen right now. So let me show you how I make this really easy, really fast, comforting treat for your menstrual phase. The recipe itself is pretty straightforward, but as always, we're going to begin with detailing our ingredients. So for our dry ingredients, because the recipe basically just says, do this with the dry, do this with the wet. So the dry ingredients, as far as the recipe is concerned, 1 1/4 cup of almond flour, and make sure you get the fine or super fine, otherwise it's going to be very grainy. This is the kind that I use, Bob's Red Mill. It's my favorite brand for pretty much any sort of baking thing. 1 teaspoon of baking powder, a dash of cinnamon, and a dash of salt. You guys know I measure with my heart. Optionally, you can also add in a 1/2 teaspoon of allspice, but I don't have any, so we're just leaving it out. Now for the wet ingredients, we need 3 eggs beaten, so I'm going to go ahead and beat those before we get started. We also need 2 bananas mashed. I have some ripe organic bananas here, so I'm going to just grab 2 of them and smush them up with a fork. 3 tablespoons of honey. You can use any honey you like. I happen to have this that I got at a farmer's market, and it's made from mango blossoms. So this particular vendor, what he does, or beekeeper I suppose, he has all sorts of different piles of bees, and each of them is allowed access to only one kind of flower. So their honey comes from the nectar of specific plants, and this one is made from mango nectar. I am allergic to mango fruit, but I can have this no problem, and it's really, really tasty. So I'm going to be using 3 tablespoons of this. We also need 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. Seeing as they're counting this as a wet ingredient, I'm guessing that they do not want it solid, but I'm in South Florida. The AC is on here all the time, so it's always solid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure out the 3 tablespoons, and I'm going to warm them up so that it's liquid and pourable, but not hot because I don't want it to affect, like I don't want it to cook the eggs, for example, but just warm enough to get it liquid so that it all blends in together with the rest of the wet stuff. And we also need 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. Again, I measure with my heart. I'm not going to stop and measure vanilla. I'm just going to pour until it looks good. Once the wets and dries are combined, we're going to go in with our mix-ins. So it calls for 3 to 4 tablespoons of walnut pieces. I happen to have raw pecans, so that's what I'm going to use. And lastly, 3/4 of a cup of grated carrots. So I just bought pre-shredded carrots because typically whenever I try to grate vegetables, I leave chunks of my fingers behind and nobody wants that. So these might be a little chunkier than the recipe intended, but that's fine. We're gonna make it work. First things first, we're gonna preheat our oven to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And I have a muffin tin here, a silicone tray. You can either line a muffin tray with liners, paper liners, silicone liners, whatever you have on hand, or you can just grease your liner. I have some avocado oil spray, so that's what I'm going to use on my muffin tray here. So in a mixing bowl, I'm going to combine my dry ingredients and set them aside. Remember, the dry ingredients are the 1.25 cups of almond flour, teaspoon of baking soda, your cinnamon, and your salt. And now in a separate bowl, I'm going to combine the wet ingredients. I've already beaten the eggs and mashed the bananas. So remember, the wet ingredients are 3 eggs, 2 bananas, 3 tablespoons of honey, 3 tablespoons of coconut oil, and a teaspoon-ish of vanilla extract. Once the wet ingredients are thoroughly mixed, we're going to pour them on top of the dry ingredients and mix them together. Once everybody is friends, we're going to fold in our shredded carrots and our walnuts, pecans, whatever you've got on hand. As a reminder, that's 3 to 4 tablespoons of nuts and 3/4 of a cup of carrot. We're going to pour our batter into our muffin pan and place our pan into the oven. I've got it on another sort of like aluminum cookie sheet to give it a little bit of support because it's going to be very hot when I take it out, obviously, and I don't want this just flopping about. We're going to bake for 20 to 22 minutes or until the toothpick comes out completely clean. Allow your muffins to cool before serving and enjoy. Alright pals, there you have the finished product. They were really good. Obviously the strings of carrots hanging out might not be the prettiest thing, but they were not like a hindrance at all, you know, like they didn't take away from the final product. And if you really wanted to make them super pretty, you could go through the extra process of just grating regular carrots so that they're finer and they mix into the batter more. I thought these were delicious. I made a batch. The batter made 12 full-sized little muffins. So I made a batch early in the week. I kept them in the fridge. They are extra good cold. Like they're good warm, but they are so good straight out of the fridge. If you're somebody that tolerates dairy, or if you have a dairy-free butter on hand, I'm sure putting some butter on them when they're warm would also be really good. But these were so easy. They're very tasty, and I am not a huge fan of carrots generally, but finding ways to eat them and get those benefits without having to just chomp on a carrot is a win in my book. I hope that you'll try this recipe for yourself, whether you're into cycle syncing or not. It's just a really tasty breakfast treat. There's no refined sugar in it. It's naturally gluten and dairy free. Honestly, I'm sure kiddos would love it. Everybody in the family is gonna enjoy it, and I'm really looking forward to hearing how you liked them too. I wanna thank you so much for being here and watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, I hope that you'll please give it a big thumbs up. I'd also love it if you'd subscribe and click that notification bell because I post at least 3 times a week and I wouldn't want you to miss a minute. Thanks so much again for watching. Bye.